particular places. And as you receive the message, acknowledge those areas your hands are. Thank you. Thank you for being a beautiful part of my body. You are working as a whole, and the job you do is so important. Thank you. And one last time, I'm going to rub our hands again. And without thinking about it, that's why I asked you to close your eyes as you rub, so that without thinking about it, you can then put your hands on another part of your body. And what's the message that's being communicated? What's it sharing with you? And let's acknowledge that part of our body. Thank you for the role you play, the function that you bring, for working together as one whole beautiful vessel that contains my soul, for making my journey here possible. Thank you. And so with that, you can just now release your hands from your body. You can place them wherever is comfortable, on your lap, on your heart, wherever it is that's the most comfortable for you. And now we're ready to receive the energy of Kryon through the words that Lee is going to deliver.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. And how many times in the past 30 years have I told you to love yourself, the parts of your body? You go through them, each organ. Perhaps you put your hands over your heart, and they're all part of one functioning system, controlled by the boss, and that's you. The very beginnings of all of the Kryon sessions always talked about talking to yourselves. The ability for you then to control things that you were told you couldn't control. So that's a little bit of the subject in this particular channel. Controlling things you don't think you have any control over, only it's not parts of your body. This one is a hard one. It has to do with what you've been told, what you've been programmed, what you've seen, and the way you think things work. This is the third channeling of what we will call the New Year's month, 2023. And when you look at this in a larger way, there are always those who say, what is this year going to bring? And we've looked at some issues perhaps that are personal, an overview, the way you should look at the numerology, but this one will deal with the future. Eons go by. New Year's happen over and over. You have been part of so many of them. The first month of the year is the one that this celebration occurs. And you have participated in this in every past life. You realize that. Whatever the calendar was for whatever tribe you were part of, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, this was the way of it. In general, you hoped a new year would be better, but often it wasn't. In fact, there were certain parts of history that it simply got worse and worse. So no matter what things were said, what ceremonies were done, what wishes for the good year and the new year were given, things never changed. Now, this has been addressed in Channel, and it has to do with time repeating itself. Now, if you have not heard this before, you'll hear it now. If you have heard it, I want you to stay with me because it's important for what's coming next. There has been an expression for a very long time that says that time repeats itself, and that certain things regarding the episodes of time over years, they tend to repeat themselves. You go through a war. The war gets solved. There's a winner or a loser, but not for long. It then raises its head again. Did those winners or losers then participate yet again in another war? Now, you have seen this. Even your grandparents, perhaps, have seen this. It would lead you to wondering, is there something that would cause time to repeat itself no matter what? Even though war is never an answer, even though there's such a horror in it, why would you ever do it again? And the answer is, you always do. There must be a reason. That reason is an old energy that does not see the dysfunction of one civilization or one generation. And enough time goes by and they try it again. And enough time goes by and they try it again. And so what you have is your history packed with conquerors. It seems like almost every country has taken turns at this. And you look at the future and say, here we go again. I told you some time ago that something changed. The time was like a railroad track of a tiny toy train around a Christmas tree. And it just seemed that when it was done running over one part of the track, as it came around again, a new generation had come and gone, and it didn't even notice itself, didn't see the dysfunction of what had happened on the track, and went over it again, and went over it again. And so the track was just filled with lessons never learned. Part of that is the old energy, but part of that also is because time does seem to repeat itself. And then I told you this, that this shift that you're in right now is like a track siding to a train. A siding, an offshoot, a new track that has never been there before. And the train itself decided to take that track. It was tired of the other tracks. And that was 2012. And we made that comparison before. And so when that siding was viewable, the switch was thrown, and the train, that is humanity, took the track onto another circle. And that circle had no history. That circle had had no wars. That circle had a bigger track, another color. That circle invited the train to be different. And all those on the train knew it somehow. Something had changed. We have said this over and over. This is not your grandfather's world. That you're starting to see things happen now that shock and surprise you. What is the future going to be like? 2023, your train is on a new track, not the old one, dear ones. As I speak to you now, there's a horrific war. There's suffering, there's death, there's sorrow on both sides. What's going to happen there? This was a war that may have shocked and surprised many of you because it was predicted. I told you, not specifically about a war, but there would be those in important places invested in taking you back to the way it was. This particular episode, this energy of this you call war, will not last on this track. The world didn't want it. The world won't want it again. This is a new track. Get ready for some startling changes. Not what you think. If you take a look at many of the other things that have always repeated themselves, that were unjust, out of integrity, not right, that's not on the track either. So what I'm telling you is this is the greatest opportunity humanity has ever had. You've taken a new track. 2023, more than any other year that you've had on that track since 2012, is filled with promise. Now, indeed, there will be still those who want to take you and rip you back to the old track. And you'll see it. You'll say, that's not right. This is an old energy. Look what they're doing. And so many will say, no, it cannot be done. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to vote that way. I'm not going to say yes. That is coming as well. You will slowly start to see in this 2023 year things that start to show you that a general consensus of a civilization is starting to change. That they want certain things, and it's not death and destruction. Not that they wanted it before, but it just seemed that it always went that way. But this time, they'll speak out. That they don't want suppressive governments. Now, no one ever did. But this time, they'll speak out. Now, these things always bring issues, and sometimes more death. But, dear ones, I'll tell you, they become benchmarks of change, where there are so many who will rise up and say, not anymore, not this time. 2023 filled with surprises in both directions, but so many of them will be for you to look at and say, look at that. Kryon said that would happen. Look at that. Oh my, things are changing. I give you this message because it's hopeful. And you need that. It's a message that says the train on this particular track does not have to repeat a time of before. That the old energy of the old track, so used, so that you're so used to, is gone. And it's in the hands of the old souls, the light workers, those who would listen to this, to see it. And not just to see it, but to acknowledge it and say, look, this is happening. It's going to happen in my life too. Perhaps I should participate. And that is, I'll participate in loving that track. I'll participate in the kindness and the attitude that's going to change the train. I'll do things that I hadn't done before because I didn't think there was any hope before. And now I do. This is what we wanted to tell you. The future is not what you think. You are in control over something you didn't think you were in control of. There it is. It's a tough one, is it not? When you're surrounded by others who will say, well, it's the same old, same old. Things won't really change. Here it comes again. And what you can say to them is this. Well, maybe this one will be different because I feel things happening. And you might even invite them to look at some of the things, not making them wrong, but perhaps inviting them to look at that which is a changeable earth, not one that always stays the same, one where there's hope and there's promise because you're in charge of it. This is my message. You might call it the main New Year's message. Oh, there's another one coming as well. Blessed is the human who truly understands this is a different time. It's a different time with different energies. that you came for. I am crying in love with humanity. And so it is.
And very softly and gently, I invite you to bring your awareness back into your body, following that beautiful message from Kryon. And if you've had your eyes closed, I invite you to open your eyes and welcoming you back to this next part of the program. Once again, we are so blessed to have two people coming to us, a beautiful husband and wife team, Dr. Jason Loken and his beautiful wife, Taya. And I want to just make sure they're on the Zoom feed with us. Jason and Taya, are you there?
Hello, guys. Hello.
So wonderful to see you. Now, we have actually been guests on their podcast, and so it's so wonderful that we get to have them as guests on Healing Wednesday.
I know, it's great. Well, Dr. Jason Loken and his wife, Taya, they've been on a mission to more deeply understand the nature of the greater reality, the inner workings of health, vitality, how to live a life with more joy. In order to support this mission, Dr. Jason created the Inspire Health podcast several years ago. He created this before people were doing it, folks. This is what we were talking before even 2020, where he and Taya get to interview inspirational leaders, visionaries, game changers in the field of health and wellness, mind, body, medicine, spirituality, and more.
Now, together they created the experiential platform called Adventures in Joy. Don't you just love that title? Adventures in Joy. And that's where they share more of their own life, both the fun parts as well as the trials and tribulations that are often a natural part of life's journey. These candid conversations and fun, along with practical videos, explore possibilities, and they often awaken seeds of inspired presence and action in others. They combine their decades of training and experience in naturopathic medicine, osteopathy, integrative medicine, meditation, yoga, and metaphysics. And all of that information goes into the creation of their books, products, and online courses and retreats. Now, these tools are meant to support and inspire others in finding their own path to a greater health, to true potential and joy. And so with that, Jason and Taya, welcome to our program.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for
really
that beautiful
pleasure.
Introduction.
Fun being on the other side of the microphone.
Is it really? Well, we like both sides, actually. And one of the things that I like is I always ask, how did this happen? I mentioned it just a little bit, but Inspire Health Podcast, you were doing this before COVID, when there's so many people jumped on it because this is all they could do. So I look at you as a pioneer, both of you, and actually having the thought that you could do it. And of course, I'm sure that it's growing. Give us the story.
Yeah, I had wanted to put together specifically something around health, just being in the field that I was in, and also be able to actually talk to people that I wanted to have conversations with for my own knowledge and for my own curiosity. And so it kind of started there. And we had a bunch of different names that were running around. And then eventually Inspire just kind of came out. And I was like, that's it. That's what I really want. I want people to be able to feel inspired, because when you get that sensation of inspiration, it's like it really motivates you to move in a certain direction, to act, to put things into the world practically. And so that was kind of what stirred up the idea of Inspire Health Podcast. And yeah, we had started it, I guess, maybe a year or so prior to 2020. And we had done a few different series on things like children's health and yoga and mind-body medicine and whatnot. But when COVID happened, it really started to transition where we were focusing. I mean, we put together a series called Science, Mysticism, and Beyond, and that was really what kind of exploded the doors open on what we were doing.
And what kind of changes have you seen unfold in your personal life as a result of trying to inspire others?
Well, I think for me personally, I had no interest in being on this side of the camera at all. I was quite content just doing the administrative behind the scenes sort of work that was entailed in running this podcast. But I know that as soon as COVID hit and we naturally started to gravitate more towards the spiritual aspect, the metaphysical aspect of our reality, it was just a natural organic progression. I wanted to jump in on the conversations. I'm like, I want to talk to Lee and Monica. I want to talk to, all these wonderful people whom I've been reading the books of for so long. And so I think that definitely changed our trajectory of how we were perceiving health even, rather than this top-down model of like physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We actually recognized through our own lives, our own experiences, and also diving into the content that we had been for so long, that it's definitely, it starts from the metaphysical, like the template is there on a spiritual level, and then it starts to trickle down, and the physicality of what we see is just the end result of what takes place on what actually is a top-down model that we are emphasizing and we are understanding to be more our emphasis right now.
And given your background was in those field, naturopathic medicine, osteopathy, you have credentials working as doctors, and to hear you say that it needs to be a top-down approach, how do you perceive the future of medicine is going to unfold?
I think we're already moving in that direction, and I really feel like more and more people, like what I will see from a perspective when I'm working with patients is that when I see the real dramatic changes, they all, for the most part, come from big aha moments that took place. It usually is from these more abstract, energetic bodies of the mental, emotional, and the spiritual that then trickles down. So those are the realms of spontaneous healing. That's where it happens, because the entire blueprint for the physical body will change almost instantaneously. So I think that where we are going to be moving, we did a whole series called Energy, Frequency, Vibration, and Magnetics, the next era of healthcare.
Of which you guys
were a part of, because we had to have a talk with you guys tying into magnetics and all that stuff. So I think we're moving more and more there. And what's fun is to see sort of where the overlap between what science is trying to catch up on, a lot of times what I think spiritual teachers and elders and Aboriginal cultures often knew and practiced, but now they're trying to understand it from a certain perspective. Quantum physics has done leaps and bounds on being able to try and bridge these worlds. And the metaphysics teachings, I think, are really what is going to be really, really exciting and absolutely exponentially explode our ability to heal.
Do you find people are more open to this these days?
Yeah. I think definitely. I think people are getting an internal knowing that there's more than just the physical. And I think they bump up against the road over and over again when they only look for physical means to address something. And I think they're just realizing that it's limited, and not everybody. There's a transition, right? I mean, I feel like we're really wanting to move in that direction because we realize how important it is and how valuable it is for people. So that's kind of what we're wanting to bring more and more awareness to. So we bring guests on to really try to make that more normal, that is sort of the way it works. And then as people see that and they hear it more and it resonates with them, then I think they're going to be more and more open to wanting to explore it and have their own tangible experience with it.
Given your background in the field of health and that you're working with clients on health, and then you're exploring the spiritual aspect of things, what's some of the common things that create health, joy, and wellness? I know it's a hard one, but I guess for me, I remember one of the things I got really excited about is things that make you live longer. It wasn't about necessarily diet and exercise, which I was very happy to hear, although it's important, but it was about community and having someone that you can ask for help and things like that. So is there things that you're seeing that create a commonality of the health and wellness in people's lives and the joy factor?
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I honestly think at the heart of it is? what I actually think creates the most suffering for almost everybody is when we are in that disconnect between what we are thinking and what we ultimately believe to be true from that true essence of who we are. When we are out of alignment with that, and then we're operating in the world from that misalignment, I really think that that's what creates the most suffering for everybody. One of the guests that we had, RJ Spina, had said something that I thought was really valuable and really stuck with me. And we were talking around DNA and cellular health and how the body works. And he said, ultimately it depends on who is giving the instructions and who we are taking the instructions from. And if we are taking the instructions from the ego mind identity, that false sense of perceptions, that false sense of identifications that we are basically born into the world with and that we accumulate as we go through our life, then we are always going to create a blueprint that is going to create and lead to disease, because that's ultimately not true. We are designed to take information from the true self. We are designed to take information from our individual source connection and then live from that place. And so to me, it's like the more that we keep that progress and moving in that journey towards
to thanking those elementals of Gaia for being here. Thank those elementals for offering their love and support for everything that you go through. And those elementals are always with you and always there, offering you a couch that you can sit on to be in a state of peace, calmness, and tranquility. And with that gratitude and thanks to the elementals, we remain seated in that couch of peace, calmness and tranquility as we receive the message from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. This is indeed week 2 of a series of 4 channeling series, and the series is about awakening. Now, each time we give this channel about this in a series of 4 of anything, we do a little review. For there are those who will come upon this channel without hearing the others. The subject is this: the attributes of awakening on this planet are many, and some of them are odd. And when we say odd, it is that which is not expected in a spirituality that you might have studied or expect that spirituality would give you or do for you. If we said they've awakened to a bigger idea about God, what would be the attributes you would expect? They would then suddenly be able to see things they didn't see, or the grandness of the planet. Perhaps they would see the elementals that have just been mentioned. Perhaps they would feel that peace and serenity and all because they're awakening to the light that God is. We spoke in session 1 about a metaphor, that the consciousness of the planet has been like in a dark room with a dim light to see by. And it's caused so many things to happen because of the dim light. Lack of trust, corruption, greed, all the things that bring everything to oneself because there's no light. If there were bright light, you could see it all. And if you could see it all, you wouldn't need to do those things, dear ones. You could see your neighbors. You could see what's happening to them. You could help them without going through the kinds of things in a dark room where you have to get up and search for them and not even be able to see them, all metaphorically. We talked about that being a box of darkness. And that is consciousness, and that's where you've been. And finally, we talked about perhaps a door in the corner with a bright light behind it, and it's open a crack, and the light shines so intensely through the crack, and some are afraid of it, and some go right to it. And if you go right to it and you open it, then the room starts to flood with a bigger light. Now, that is a metaphor, dear one, of you opening a door and others benefiting. Do you see that? Please understand what you do next in your life, in awakening to a grander truth, helps those around you. It always does. However, that's not the subject of this channel. Awakening to a human being, to you, your psyche, your personality, who you are, carries with it some odd attributes. Now, we have mentioned some, and some that you're recognizing, and some of you will recognize these, that you didn't expect. All the way to the fourth channel, we're going to give you some of these. Not all of you are involved in all of them, but some of you are involved with some of them, and so you will relate. The fourth channel, we'll tell you why. We'll tell you why there should be such odd things happening with a spiritual attribute of awakening. How about the first one? Some of you need to sleep longer. Now, these things I'm going to give you are physical. Some of you need to sleep longer. Now, there will be those who say, well, that may just be coming with age or because I'm more tired. Or, no, it doesn't. In fact, there are those who will tell you that as you age, you need to sleep less. Perhaps reverting to that which is a child. But you're sleeping longer. And you need to sleep longer, and you know you do, because the time you slept before isn't quite enough. And so you are extending that, or trying to, for some of you who have busy schedules, realizing that your body is saying, I need to sleep more. I want to give you a hint about what's coming in Channel 4. The indigenous of this planet went to bed when the sun went down and got up when it came up. Now that's more than 6 hours. And yet here is a population of very busy individuals who are told to get at least 6 or 7. That's very, very different from the way it started. You might even say you're pushing the envelope of what is indeed what your body should have or what it wants. But there is a bigger reason. There's a bigger reason why you need to sleep longer. There is some processing going on in your sleep. Now, some of you know this because of the kinds of dreams you've had. Now, you might say, wait a minute, Kryon, I'm not having good dreams. In fact, I'm having bad dreams. They're pulling up all manner of things, and I don't like them. What if that were a way of your brain discharging memories forever? Because you're awakening. Do you see what I'm saying? Psychologists will tell you the brain almost reboots, perhaps even every night. That's why you need to sleep. And then in the process, there are many things that come forward through your synapse and your memory, and they can't really truly explain what it is. But I'm telling you what it is in this particular case. You are throwing away the things you don't need to have in your memory anymore.